Blood on the River, Jamestown, 1607, Chapter 22. Captain Smith, you shall find Powhatan to use you kindly, but trust him not, for he hath sent for you only to cut your throats. Chief of the Werekoyaks, quoted in William Simon's The Proceedings. Our trouble starts when winter sets in. If we had more skilled farmers and hunters, and if we all worked at farming and hunting, we might be able to produce enough food to get us through the winter. But as it is, our men are kept busy searching for gold, digging sassafras, making clapboard, glass, pitch, tar, and soap ashes to ship back to England in the hopes that something in the lot will make a profit for the Virginia Company. And, to make things worse, when Captain Newport leaves in December, he takes a lot of our food stores with him, saying that he and his sailors will need them for the long voyage home. At least he takes Captain Radcliffe as well, and rids us of him. When our barrels are close to empty, Captain Smith goes to trade with the natives for grain, but he comes back empty-handed. Chief Powhatan has commanded all the tribes not to trade with us. He is wielding his power, says Captain Smith. He is showing us that the crowning ceremony angered him, and that his power is not diminished by it. We will see what else he plans to do. We are allowed 1 cup of grain for each person each day. I'm always hungry. I often think of the feast at Werewocomoco and wish I was there again. Richard and I dig up sassafras root to chew on to ease our hunger. Then we talk about food, trying to use our minds to fill our bellies. My mum used to make Yorkshire pudding at Christmas time, I say, with the crust just a little brown and loads of gravy. Richard closes his eyes, imagining. And remember All Saints' Day at the orphanage? He asked, when we had enough stew with enough meat in it so everyone got some? We talk about the birds and fish we roasted on Nevis, and I tell him again about the mounds of peas, squash, and venison at the Werewocomoco feast. Soon our jaws are tired from chewing on the sassafras roots, and for a time our bellies are fooled into thinking we have eaten. Then, one day we have good news, or what seems like good news. 2 natives arrive to tell us that Chief Powhatan is ready to trade. He will give us food if we bring him what he wants: a grindstone, a rooster, and a hen, copper, beads, 50 swords, several muskets, and workmen to build him an English-style house. He knows we are hungry enough that Captain Smith might, give him all he wants, including the weapons. President Smith rubs his forehead and says quietly, we are desperate for the food. To the messengers in Algonquin, he says, tell Chief Powhatan we come, give things he wants. But as the messengers walk away, he says in English, except the guns and swords. I will throw in some extra gifts instead. I smile, watching the battle of wills between Captain Smith and Chief Powhatan. It's like watching the dance of a sword fight between 2 proud, powerful men. We load up 2 barges and the Discovery for the trip to Werewocomoco. We hope to bring all 3 vessels back laden with food. The first night we stop at the Werekoyak village, and we are welcome as guests. Chief Sassinticum shares his pipe of tobacco with Captain Smith, and shares some advice as well. I listen hard to understand the Algonquin words. Chief Powhatan will treat you kindly, but do not trust him, he says. He has sent for you only to slit your throats. Captain Smith does not seem surprised, and I realize he has already guessed that this might be a trap. We keep guns ready, he says in choppy Algonquin. Then he looks at me. I leave boy with you? He asked Chief Sassinticum. I send messenger to him? If I, dead boy, go to Jamestown, tell others? This chills me to my bones. I want to object to tell Captain Smith not to go. Why is he willingly walking into a trap? We are surviving on our grain. I want to tell him, Captain Newport will be back soon. Let us all return to Jamestown tomorrow and wait for the supply ship. But I don't say anything. It's not my place. Chief Sassin Tecum agrees. Captain Smith and the other men will go on to Werakogomo in the morning. I will stay in the Werakoyak village and wait. If Captain Smith is killed, I will return to Jamestown to bring the news. The next morning, I watch the Discovery sail away with Captain Smith at her helm. I wonder if it'll be the last time I see him. I push down sadness. I have already lost Reverend Hunt. I do not want to lose Captain Smith as well. I tell myself that he is wily and smart and will not easily fall into Chief Powhatan's trap. The Werakoyak village is a busy place, and I want to do my share of the work. But when I try to help help two girls with their pounding of corn into meal, Kainta, Chief Sastikum's son, pulls me away. That work is for women to do, he says. I will show you men's work. He takes me into the forest, and there is a thin layer of snow on the dead leaves, and my feet crunch loudly on them. He stops and looks at me, frowning. You are very loud, he says. He inspects my shoes. My mother will make you moccasins. He looks around, finding a sapling that seems to be just the right for what he is searching for, and he cuts it down with his hatchet. I will teach you how to make a bow and arrows, he says. Working with wood and stone is a good way to keep my mind off what might be happening to Captain Smith. Kainta teaches me how to peel the bark off a sapling, cut notches for the bowstring, and string it with strong gut. We make several arrow shafts from straight, thin wood. He shows me how to make an arrowhead, chipping a piece of rock until it is the right shape. It is a slow process, and I ruin several pieces of rock before I get it right. But finally, I am able to make my first arrowhead. Then I tie it to my shaft and balance the shaft with feathers so that it will shoot straight. When we grow hungry, we go to the communal cook fire. There we find a large clay pot filled with hominy and venison stew, fish on the grill, and bread baking in the hot ashes on the ground. Eat, says Kainta. He tears off a piece of bread and uses an oyster shell to scoop stew right out of the pot. I do the same. It is delicious. This is what I have seen people do all day. Just come up to the pot and take what they want to eat. I realize that they have no meal times, no rationing of food, and I think that these Powhatan people must be the wealthiest people on earth. A young woman comes to put a new loaf of bread in the ashes and to stir the pot of stew. She wears a kind of apron made of deerskin that hangs down to her knees. Her arms, face, and legs have colorful tattoos of patterns, flowers, fruits, and snakes. Her black hair is plaited into one long braid hanging down to her hips. She smiles shyly at me. How strange I must look to her in my English clothes. No messenger comes that day or the next. I don't know if that is good news or bad. I have no choice but to wait. At sunrise, I go with Kainta down to the river where he bathes in the frigid water. I stay, shivering on the shore. Kainta sprinkles a bit of tobacco on the river, closes his eyes, and lifts his hands. I know he is praying. This is what Namantak did each morning when he lived with us in Jamestown. The days go by and I learn more about men's work, which is mostly about hunting and fishing. I am also careful to learn about chores, which chores are women's work, so that I will not embarrass myself again and try to do any of it. Planting, weeding, harvesting, making clay pots, cooking, making clothes, it is all for girls and women to do. Kainta teaches me how to make a knife by chipping a piece of rock until it is sharp, then tying it with gut onto a short stick. He gives me a buckskin pouch and shows me how to hang it from my waist with a leather strap. My knife fits nicely inside. I continue to make my arrows, chipping the arrowheads and tying the feathers until I have enough to go hunting. Kainta shows me how to weave a case so that I can carry my arrows on my back. He has me practice with my bow and arrows and a target until I shoot straight. It snows. Kainta says this will make hunting even easier because we will see the animals' tracks in the snow. I have my new moccasins and I walk carefully, heel to toe, the way he has shown me, trying to be as silent as he. I am concentrating so hard that at first I do not notice someone else who has been walking quietly in the forest. Then suddenly, I look up and see him. Namantak! I cry out. I am very glad to see him. Then, when I realize why he has come, I am filled with fear. He is the messenger from Werewokokomo. I stand gripping my bow, waiting for the bad news. Naamantak smiles. Do not look so worried, Samuel. Your master sends good wishes. I groan with relief. Then I am confused. Why have you come and not Captain Smith? I ask him in English. He answers me in Algonquin. I am in his world now. Captain Smith says you will stay with the Werakoyaks through the winter. You will learn more of the language and eat well. Kanta joins us. He and Naamantak exchange the greetings of countrymen. With one fist, each taps his own chest, then forehead, and then taps the other boy's chest and forehead. Come, says Kanta. You must be hungry after your journey. We will hunt later. We sit with Naamantak at the communal cook fire as he eats. I form my question in Algonquin. Chief Powhatan make trap? I ask him. Now that I have heard the good news, I am ready to hear the whole story. Yes, Naamantak says. But your Werowance is quick as a rabbit. The trap did not catch him. He grins. He likes Captain Smith as much as I do.